All right, settle in, because this topic sounds quiet, but it's secretly loud in the most interesting way. Have you ever noticed this one person? They cancel plans at the last minute, not because they're sick, not because something came up, but because the idea of staying home suddenly felt amazing. They don't hate people. They don't lack friends. They just love being alone. And if that person is you, don't worry. You're not broken. You're not antisocial. And no, you're not missing out on life. In fact, your brain is doing something very specific. Let's talk about the psychology of people who like to be alone. And fair warning, by the end of this, you might stop apologizing for it. Let's start with a myth that needs to be quietly escorted out of the room. People who like being alone are often labeled as shy, awkward, cold, rude, or my personal favorite. Are you okay? Yes, they are okay. They're just wired differently. Liking solitude doesn't mean you dislike people. It means your mind doesn't need constant noise to feel alive. Think of it like phones. Some people need to be charged all the time. They panic at 20%. Others are perfectly fine, cruising at 40% for days. People who enjoy being alone, they recharge without plugging into others. Silence doesn't drain them. It fuels them. Here's the first psychological truth. People who like being alone tend to have high internal stimulation. Translation? Their brain is already busy. While some people need music conversation, background noise, a podcast playing while another video plays. Others have a mind that never shuts up. They think. They imagine. They replay conversations from 2014. They create fake arguments in the shower and win them. So when they're alone, it's not empty. It's a full house. Ever notice how people who enjoy solitude don't get bored easily? Give them a window, a cup of tea, a random thought, and boom, 1 hour gone. That's because boredom isn't about us having nothing to do. It's about not knowing how to sit with yourself. And people who like being alone, they're comfortable with their own company. They don't need constant distraction to escape themselves. Which brings us to something interesting. People who like being alone often have strong self-awareness. They know what drains them, what excites them, what feels fake. They can sense when a conversation is pointless, when a relationship is performative, when they're forcing themselves to fit. So instead of pretending, they choose distance. Not out of arrogance, out of honesty. They'd rather be alone than feel lonely in a crowd. And yes, there's a difference. Let's talk about social energy. Imagine social interaction like a phone call. For some people, calls are energizing. They hang up feeling excited. For others, every call feels like, okay, I love you, but I need silence immediately. People who like being alone aren't bad communicators. They're selective communicators. They don't want 100 conversations. They want 2 meaningful ones. Small talk feels like chewing gum forever. Deep talk feels like food. Here's where society gets confused. We live in a world that worships networking group chats, parties, being social. So when someone chooses solitude, it looks suspicious. But psychology tells us something else. People who enjoy being alone often have low need for external validation. They don't constantly ask, do you like me? Am I interesting? Did I say the right thing? They validate themselves internally, which is why they don't need to perform. They can sit quietly and still feel enough. Now let's address the big one. No one likes to be alone all the time. True. And people who enjoy solitude know this. They don't avoid people forever. They just pace themselves. They understand something many don't. Connection without recovery leads to burnout. So they take breaks, not because they're angry, not because they're distant, but because they respect their mental limits. Think of it as mental hygiene. Some people shower twice a day. Others need space to reset. Here's a funny pattern you might recognize. People who like being alone often disappear and then return like nothing happened. No dramatic explanation, no apology tour, just, hey. And when they're back, they're fully present. That's because solitude helps them process emotions. Instead of reacting immediately, they retreat. They think. They feel. They sort things out internally. So when they re-enter the world, they're calmer, less impulsive, more intentional. Another fascinating trait: people who like being alone often have rich inner worlds. They imagine scenarios. They analyze meanings. They reflect deeply. That's why many writers, artists, thinkers, and creatives enjoy solitude. Silence gives their thoughts room to stretch. Noise cuts that short. This doesn't mean they're always serious. In fact, many are secretly hilarious. They just don't perform humor on demand. They save it for people who get them. Let's talk about independence. People who enjoy being alone are often emotionally independent. They don't rely on others to regulate their mood. They can feel sad without panicking. They can feel bored without scrolling endlessly. They can feel quiet without feeling empty. This scares people who fear their own thoughts. So they project. You're too quiet. You should go out more. You're wasting your life. But really, they're uncomfortable with stillness. Here's a subtle but powerful truth. People who like being alone often value quality over quantity. They don't collect friends like trophies. They build slow, deep bonds, which is why when they care hard. They listen closely. They remember details. They show up when it matters. They may not text daily, but when life falls apart, they're there, quietly, solidly. Let's clear another misunderstanding. Liking solitude is not the same as being lonely. Loneliness is craving connection and not having it. Solitude is choosing space and enjoying it. People who like being alone can still feel lonely sometimes, but they don't confuse the two. They know when to reach out and when to recharge. That balance is emotional intelligence. Now here's the part nobody tells you. People who like being alone often feel things deeply. Crowds overwhelm them. Noise overstimulates them. Too much input exhausts them. So solitude acts like emotional armor. It protects their nervous system. It gives their feelings somewhere safe to land. This is why they may avoid chaos. Not because they're weak, but because they're sensitive in a strong way. You might have noticed this too. People who enjoy being alone often walk faster, observe more, talk less but say more. They notice small details, tone changes, facial expressions, energy shifts. And because they notice so much, they need downtime. Solitude helps them decompress from the world they're constantly absorbing. Let's bring in a real-life example. Imagine a party. One person is thriving, laughing, moving around, talking to everyone. Another person is smiling politely, already thinking about their bed. Same party, different wiring. Neither is wrong, but only one of them will be asked, "Why are you so quiet?" People who like being alone often grow up hearing, "Speak more, smile more, be more social." So they learn to adapt. They become excellent listeners, observers, thinkers. But inside they're waiting for silence. Not because they hate people, because silence feels like home. Here's something beautiful. People who enjoy solitude often have a strong sense of identity. They don't get lost easily in trends, crowds, or opinions. They've spent time alone with their thoughts. And that builds clarity. They know what they like, what they don't, what they stand for, which is why they don't follow noise. They follow meaning. Let's talk humor for a second. People who like being alone will cancel plans with joy, celebrate when someone else cancels, feel relief when plans end early. They'll say, "Yeah, we should meet soon," and secretly mean, "Not too soon." And that's okay. Their social battery just works differently. Another psychological layer: people who enjoy being alone are often self-soothing. They calm themselves through routines, quiet, hobbies, repetition, comfort. They don't need constant reassurance. They find safety in familiarity, which is why alone time feels restorative, not empty. You may have noticed they enjoy simple things: a walk, a book, late night thinking, music through headphones. These aren't escapes, they're anchors. Let's end with something important. If you like being alone, you don't need to fix it. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to justify it. Solitude isn't a flaw. It's a preference, a strength, a way of processing the world gently instead of loudly. So the next time someone asks, "Why do you like being alone so much?" you can smile and think, "Because my mind feels like home, and I actually enjoy living there." And honestly, that's not lonely at all.